Welcome to the third episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. I am Daniel Mahoney, and on this episode, with the NBA regular season starting, I'm going to analyze and give you my reaction to the Spurs, Kings, and Clippers' first three regular season games. With that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get it started. I'm going to start off this episode by talking about the San Antonio Spurs.
Looks to Victor. Guarded by Şengün. The fadeaway.
The Spurs are 1-2 in their first three games. And when talking about the Spurs, it starts with Wemby. How has he looked? He has struggled with efficiency. He's struggled with foul trouble in the game against the Mavericks. His handle is a little loose. However, I think that Victor Wembanyama has looked really good and has shown flashes of how good he's going to be. For example, in the Mavericks game, even though he struggled with foul trouble, he had a couple of illegal screens. In the fourth quarter, he started to get it going. He hit a pull-up three. Then he also had a nice face-up mid-range jumper against Grant Williams when he came off two cross screens, got a nice catch and hit the jumper in Grant Williams' face. In the Rockets game, he struggled with efficiency. He was taking a lot of contested jumpers. However, I think that even though the box score didn't look good, I think that Victor Wembanyama played a good game. There was a play where I think that Keldon Johnson threw an oop to Jeremy Sohan, but Jeremy Sohan couldn't dunk it because it was too low of a pass. However, Victor Wembanyama just took it out of Jeremy Sohan's hands and dunked it. It was pretty hilarious to watch.
There he is again. Hey! Mama Wembanyama! It's only 5 minutes late, but it still worked.
And shows how talented he is with his height, with his athleticism. It's pretty ridiculous when you watch him play. And then in the second half, he had one play against Fred VanVleet, Şengün, and Dillon Brooks, I think. He just took it against all three of those guys in transition and got an and one and made it look easy.
Chased down by the Spurs and Vassell ahead to Victor. Into the paint, goes up and scores!
And then he was cooking Jabari Smith Jr. One time, Victor had an ISO against Jabari Smith Jr., and Victor took it baseline and had a nice reverse dunk. It was pretty great to watch.
He's got 11.
This system is much better for him.
Well, they have a system. On the drive. Oh, my goodness! Send it to the line! DW!
No other human being, Bill, has any right to dunk this one. He takes off from the other side and makes it look easy.
And once again, Victor had that same isolation against Jabari Smith Jr. and hit a big shot to tie the game. And that's why the Spurs were in overtime and were able to get that win.
Wembanyama on the drive. He scores! We're tied! Timeout Rockets!
And then in overtime, he had a nice mid-range contested jumper against Dillon Brooks, who was doing some trash talking like Dillon Brooks always does and doesn't back it up at all. Dillon Brooks said that Victor Wembanyama is just tall. That's the first impression of him. The Clippers game I'm not going to talk about because no one looked good in the Clippers game. Victor did not look good, but I'm hoping that the Spurs can get him easier shots because the majority of his shots are just contested jumpers right now. It's been really difficult, and that's why he's struggling with efficiency. I do think that the Spurs need to start Tre Jones. I think that right now they need a true point guard, and Jeremy Sohan has been really bad offensively, and Tre Jones is so consistent as a playmaker. His reads are really good, and he has good IQ for the game. Moving on to Devin Vassell.
Down the corner three, Jeremy Sohan, who shot it at just 24% from three. as a rookie, and now a steal. Johnson off and running with Vassell. Vassell!
He's been great to start the season. His mid-range shot looks really good. He's hitting threes off the catch, off the move. He's coming off DHOs, creating offense, coming off pin downs. He's a consistent scorer, and his development from year one to now, it's looked really good. Keldon Johnson, I'm a little more worried about because he's not as skilled as Devin Vassell offensively, but his playmaking has looked fine and his defense has looked better this year. I like the Spurs starting Zach Collins at center because of what he does as a rim protector, but he has struggled from three. He went 0 for 7 from three against the Rockets, and the majority of those threes were open threes. Zach Collins has still been good though. He scored in the post really well against the Mavericks. He had a couple of clutch shots against the Rockets in their overtime win, and his passing is really good and fits what the Spurs need because they're a team that relies on cutting and you need a passing big, and Zach Collins is an underrated passer. Malachi Branham and Chetty, they've both been good off the bench, giving the Spurs some nice scoring. Chetty has been so consistent to start the season with his three-point shooting. The problem with the Spurs right now, it starts with turnovers. They've turned the ball over more than 15 times this season. In the Clippers game, they turned the ball over 15 times in the first half, which is crazy. It's just because they're a young team. They make bad passes, and they sometimes make dumb decisions. I remember against the Clippers, it was a simple inbound pass. It was off a Clippers make, and Jeremy Sohan just threw it right to Russell Westbrook because Russell was pressuring Trey Jones a little bit in the backcourt, but Jeremy Sohan made a bad decision, and he just threw it away. The Spurs defense also hasn't been good. Their drop coverage hasn't been good. It hasn't been effective because teams are getting in the paint easily, and that leads to easy layups for the ball handler or easy oops for the roller because it's a tough 2-on-1 that the Spurs put their bigs in, so it hasn't been effective. The Spurs also overhelp off strong side corner way too much. For example, against the Mavericks, Jeremy Sohan overhelped off Kyrie Irving when he was in the strong side corner, and Kyrie hit a catch and shoot three to end the game. Also, the Spurs are giving up a lot of points in transition because they turn the ball over so much. You turn the ball over, you give up a basket. That's just how it works. I still think that the Spurs are too young to make a playoff push or a play-in push, but all you want to see is development, and you want to see how good Victor looks and the things that he does. It's not about stats, it's about what he does and how he does it, and Victor has shown that he's going to be really good. It's just going to take time and development. Next team I'm going to talk about is the Los Angeles Clippers.
11-4 start. Clippers have hit 5 of 10 shots, and now the 5th turnover. Lob to Westbrook. And throws it down. Timeout, Portland.
For the Clippers, Paul George has looked great to start the year, averaging 27 in his first 3 games, around 39% from 3.
All right,
Kawhi
team. Buckle up.
That's what he does.
Paul George drained it, and just like that, 116-115 Clippers.
Kawhi Leonard is averaging around 23 points and shooting around 54% from 3.
The Jazz do defensively.
Kawhi beams in. That's clutch.
The Clippers haven't played the best competition. They're currently 2-1 with a win against the Blazers. They lost a close one against the Jazz, giving up 120 points. In that Jazz game, Paul George had 36 points. And they beat the Spurs on Sunday, 123-83. I want to talk about that game a little bit because the game against the Jazz, their defense just wasn't good. And against the Spurs, their defense was really good. The effort was there, and I think that's the most important thing with the Clippers. Yes, they don't have the defensive versatility that some people think they have. However, I think the biggest issue with them is effort. I think that they were really lazy on defense last year, and that's why they weren't that good. And in the Spurs game, the effort was there from everyone, and it starts with the stars. Paul George was great to start this game on defense. He got 3 steals to start this game, and it just helped the whole team get into a rhythm on defense. Offensively, they are tough to guard because Paul George and Kawhi are great ISO scorers. They're great. Paul George, 6'9" wing, hits contested jumpers. He's tough to guard. Kawhi is a really skilled scorer, has a great mid-range game. And then you got Russ, who brings you good playmaking, even though there are moments where he can make bad decisions, especially in that Jazz game to end it off, that bad shot that he took at the end of the buzzer. However, having offensive talent like Russ, like Paul George, like Kawhi makes it really hard for defenses to stop you. And that is the reason why the Clippers are currently 4th in offensive rating right now in the first 3 games. And it also has to do with their great 3-point shooting. As of right now, they are 4th in the league in made threes with around 15 per game. And they're 3rd in 3-point percentage, shooting around 41% from 3. Having that 3-point shooting next to Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Russell Westbrook is perfect for this offense. The problem with the Clippers is, one, even though they run really good actions for Paul George and Kawhi, I've seen Chicago action, Spain pick and roll, they run back screens and cross screens for Paul George and Kawhi. Sometimes they run those two guys off pin downs, off staggers. The problem is, after that action, the offense just gets stagnant and it becomes Kawhi PG isolation. So they do run good actions, but after that action is ran, there's not much movement after the action. This isn't the biggest problem because Kawhi and PG are great ISO scorers, but if those shots aren't going in, then you have to create easier offense from ball movement and player movement, like how the Warriors do it, or the Kings, or the Nuggets. The Clippers don't have that ball movement in cutting, so that can be a concern. But Kawhi and PG are once again great ISO scorers, and the Clippers haven't been having problems on offense because once again, they are 4th in offensive rating. Of course, the injuries are a problem with the Clippers, and that's valid. It's just pretty obvious to anyone that knows the Clippers. Kawhi, PG have struggled with health, so I didn't want to talk about it. However, the Clippers need to stay healthy, pretty obvious. If they don't have Kawhi and PG, their offense will fall apart, so they need those two guys to stay healthy. Getting Russ as a 3rd playmaker, as someone that can create offense, is huge. And you got Norman Powell, Bones Highland, who has played good off the bench, but those two guys are scorers. They sometimes have tunnel vision and their playmaking isn't that good, which is why I think that Tyronn Lue should continue to run lineups with Russ with the bench unit because that bench needs more playmaking, and having Bones and Norman Powell in the game together is not a great idea because Bones and Norman are score-first guards, as Russ is more of a playmaking guard. So I'm not saying bench Russ, just to make that clear. I'm saying continue to stagger the minutes and have Russ play with the second unit. Next team I'm going to talk about is
17th turnover of the night for Golden State. Fox, the 3 is good.
the Kings are 2-1, beating the Jazz, losing to the Warriors in a thriller where Steph dropped 41. And just beat the Lakers in overtime, 132 to 127. The Kings are playing great offense once again. It's so hard to guard with their three-point shooting, ball movement, cutting, and their actions, running DHOs, Chicago action for Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and then you got De'Aaron Fox, who still looks incredible, just like how he did last year, dropping 39 against the Warriors and then 37 against the Lakers.
8:30 to go in the fourth quarter. I think it's time for the Kings to mount a little bit of run of their own.
And here's King Clutch on the J.O.B. De'Aaron Fox with an answer.
His overall improvement to his game the last 2 years is incredible because his mid-range jumper is so good and he doesn't have to rely on athleticism anymore. He's still athletic, but he can slow down and create a good shot in the mid-range, and that's why he's been so clutch in the fourth quarter, and we saw it again against the Lakers in the fourth quarter.
We'll see how well Fox is moving here. Got the switch. Davis on him. Took the three. He's moving okay. It may not be 100%.
Unfortunately, he couldn't finish overtime because he landed on Gabe Vincent's foot and had a little ankle injury. But De'Aaron Fox still has looked so good in the clutch, and his offensive game has looked incredible as a scorer. Domantas Sabonis has still started off the year really well because he's so important for this Kings offense, because he's the reason why they run those DH shows for Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray. He's a great fit for this Kings offense, and he's an all-star for a reason, even though he did struggle against the Warriors in the playoffs last year. The Kings role players also have looked really good. I'm worried about Kevin Huerter because in these first 2 games, he has started off shooting 23% from 3, and he struggled in the playoffs against the Warriors. However, in that Lakers game, he hit a clutch 3 that basically ended it. Gabe Vincent was playing really bad gap defense, and Kevin Huerter hit a catch-and-shoot 3 that sealed the game. Keegan Murray has looked incredible, and I think he's being more aggressive and he's more confident in his second year. He was also big in the fourth quarter, and he got a huge offensive rebound, and it led to a Malik Monk open 3. Malik Monk also has looked really good once again off the bench. He's a really good scorer. Their older rookie that they got this year, Sasha, I really like him because he moves off the ball really well, and Sasha can also shoot threes, so he fits the Kings offense and gives them another three-point shooter. The Kings had a lot of doubters this year. Can they keep up that success from last year? All I gotta say to that is there's a reason why this offense was the best last year, and they've continued that success this season. The playoffs are a little more difficult because there are some matchups that they will struggle with, specifically on defense. However, their offense is extremely hard to guard, and De'Aaron Fox, I think, is a superstar point guard in my opinion, but I got a lot of players that I think are superstars, so I'm not really strict about what makes a superstar in the league. Anyways, going back to the Kings and regular season success, I think with how their offense is ran, the actions that they run, the three-point shooting, how good of a passer Domantas Sabonis is, how good he is with De'Aaron Fox, the fact that they have good role players and good coaching, I think that they'll continue to have this success in the regular season this year. That's all I got for you for the third episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it and enjoy the analysis in this episode, then please subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify. I appreciate all kinds of support, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and
Bye, have a great time.